You keep hearing we're in another Cold War. It's almost becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, because this is the only thing that the Republicans and Democrats can agree about, is that China's an enemy and it's like a new Cold War. We've got to do whatever. And I just don't see it. I see China is a rising power, and it's got a lot of problems. I mean, I don't think it has a future. Maybe it does, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if China was on the downside of its trajectory already. But China, look, China's nothing like the Soviet Union in the sense that it's completely plugged into the liberal international or the trading system that we have. China doesn't want to overthrow the system. What would a Chinese international system look like? I mean, by definition, they're the rising power. They're doing better than everybody, right? If you're rising, you're doing relatively better than the ones that are falling. Though I don't think they're rising anymore, but that has to do with Xi Jinping and his dogmatic, communist views. He's like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, but okay. But you hear people talking about like the Cold War. They're not the Soviet Union. We do more trade with China than anyone else in the world. China does more trade with us. Japan, they all do trade. They trade more than anyone. The Soviet Union, nobody traded with the Soviet Union. China doesn't have any ideology they're exporting. They're not doing, they're just economic competitors of the US. Not very good ones either. And when you think, I mean, they're good, but I mean, we're not dependent on China in any extensive way, although you could disagree. I mean, like, they make ventilators, they make things that we can substitute. We should be less dependent on them than we are. I would say that. But, with global supply chains, sure, after the pandemic, there's not as much of that. There's been a pullback. There's been more attention paid to supply chains and things like that. Okay. But this is not the Soviet Union. No. This is not another Cold War. In the Cold, you don't trade, your number one enemy is not your number one trading partner. Now, we talk about them like they're number one enemy, but they're not coming to get the United States. And it's nothing like this. Here's the key point, why it's nothing like the Cold War. And if I do nothing else in this talk, I hope your viewers come away not thinking about this as a Cold War. The Soviet Union threatened to take over Western Europe. They had a conventional military advantage in Europe, and there was a goal line stand. Like there was the possibility that the Soviet Union could take over the Eurasian landmass, which is the geographic pivot of the world, supposedly, according to Mackinder. China cannot do that. They're in no position to take over Eurasia. They are hemmed in by India, even Russia. Russia's not, they're friends, for a little while, right? India and China share a long, long border, and they have skirmishes all the time. Japan, they're hemmed in by Japan, Russia, India, Korea. They're not going anywhere. Like they cannot extend. They could never take over the Eurasian landmass. And so the question really is not like, is this like the Cold War? It's nothing like the Cold War. There are trading partners, and they're hemmed in. They're not taking over any large geographic space.